Corporal? Need anything?
How are you holding up?
Fine, I guess. Thanks for asking. You know, Corporal, I've been meaning to ask you something.
Yes?
Well, not knowing your mother and all that shit your father put you through. Do you ever feel lost?
Why do you want to know?
Oh, I'm just wondering, I guess. So, what's your answer?
Yes, I do.
I figured. You know, I haven't told you that yet, but actually our pasts aren't so different. Save for the fact that my father didn't try to conquer the world, at least not that I know.
How are our pasts alike, then?
Simply put, I also didn't know my mother. And my father was a bastard if there ever was one.
What happened to your mother?
She died giving birth to me.
I'm sorry.
It's alright. As I said, I never knew her.
I take it you and your father aren't on good terms, then?
You are of great wisdom, Dahar. No, we were not. I was and still am the only heir of the family, and if there's anything my father ever cared about, it was prestige. You see, it might not be obvious, but I'm actually of noble blood. Pure blood, as Finn and Mir elves call it. Nothing impressive, small nobility. You know, similar to the kind of Nortander nobility that's always around at royal festivities, licking everyone's boots so that they just don't forget about them.
There's nobility in Finn and Mir?
Oh, yes, there is. They don't call it that, but essentially Finn and Mir is an aristocracy.
How so?
Well, as you might know, elven culture heavily revolves around the White Tree, a gift from their goddess Ellen. Simply put, the tree is revered and guarded by a group of mages, of seers, called the Council. They're the rulers of our country, 6 women and 6 men. Now, according to the ancient lore, when a seer dies, his or her successor is chosen by the Council. However, it has become custom that a seer should be replaced by someone from his bloodline. Someone pure, as they call it.
Which means they make sure that the power stays within the right families.
Indeed. And even though elven families in themselves are small, if you count all the cousins, aunts, and uncles, the members of just one council family could populate a whole township. In other words, the closer your blood ties with the council, the closer you are to the White Tree. And thus, the higher your standing.
So I assume your father put you under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. I barely had a childhood. It was all stern-faced teachers instead, trying to feed me language, history, math, and magic from the day I could speak. And I can't even remember all those festivities and religious ceremonies I had to attend. It was as if I learned the meaning of the word small talk before I learned how to ask for my mother's teat. Not that she would have been around to listen.
How about friends?
Oh, that's another topic. I was allowed to go out and play as long as it was with the right people. Still, I didn't, which was my choice, really. One of the few I made in those years. I preferred to stay on my own.
How come?
I don't know. See, I've always felt a bit ahead of others. As you know, we think in other dimensions than you do. Our lives are a lot longer. What that means is that an elf who has seen 20 winters is still considered and looks like a child. Thus, behaves as such. I just never felt at home with most people. Especially around my age. And that feeling never changed.
What was your father hoping to gain from this?
Isn't it obvious? He wanted to marry me off, and thus expand our petty little family's prestige.
If he simply wanted to arrange a marriage for you, then why teach you magic, maths? When these things happen in Nortander, it's usually more about, how shall I put it?
The looks?
And the ancestry, yes.
Well, these things play a big role in Finn and Mir too, but to be considered a good match, education and magical talent are just as important. For a priest, let alone a pure blood, to be seen with an uneducated, non-gifted street elf is frowned upon, not to say forbidden. Also, from what I've learned, it's mostly young women and girls who get married off in Nortander, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, this isn't the case in Finn and Mir. If the head of a family decides to do so, a young boy or a young man may have the same fate as the one I just escaped by a hair's breadth. But this is a topic you could fill books with. Probably not for now.
But it never came to that?
Almost.
I see. Where is your father now?
Dead as a doornail. He got assassinated some years before I was allowed into the priesthood.
Assassinated? What happened?
He got mistaken for someone else. But it doesn't really matter. Let's not talk about it.
I'm sorry.
Oh, don't be. To be honest, I'm glad he's dead. Otherwise, I would be in bed next to some 200-year-old seer now. You see, Tahar, if there's one thing I took away from all that, it's that there's no greater power in life. Or, if there is, it doesn't care. Murderers live to be 100, children die in the birth beds. Ultimately, the biggest fallacy is that we like to believe that there's someone who gives a damn. We're on our own, and we have to make the best out of whatever life throws at us. I did. And even though not all worked out as I had planned, I'm here. And I'm free.
But the Guardians are real.
I never said that they weren't. But tell me one thing. Why is there cruelty when there's Shanna? Why is there injustice when there's Arian? Why do children die when there's Ellen? There are two explanations. Number one, the Guardians are far less powerful than we think. Number two, they just don't give a damn.
Or maybe we're just not meant to understand. Maybe their ways are unfathomable.
Yeah, right. Maybe it's all just unfathomable. Let's just accept that and live in ignorance, shall we? The gods aren't the answer. Yeah, every once in a while there's the token miracle healing. The chances of your prayers being answered are next to none. So you can either sit on your buttocks hoping that some god will take pity, or you can take your fate into your own hands.
That's a cynical way to see things.
No more cynical than to believe that the gods care.
Why?
Well, if you had the power to intervene without risk and you don't, what does that make you? A textbook cynic, and definitely not someone I'd like to have a drink with, let alone worship.
But you still feel lost sometimes, don't you?
Yeah, I do. But I'm working on it. Anyway, we digressed quite a bit, didn't we? Sorry, my fault. Sometimes I just talk too much. I'll see you around, Tahar. And thanks for listening.
Mm-hmm.
That way?
Huh? I want to buy some better equipment for the Wayfarers.
Music to my ears. What did you have in mind? Oh, the Corporal. Quite a nice place you found yourself here, I have to say. Thanks again for helping us out in that bloody desert. So, if you don't mind, we'll unload our cart and smithy here. As promised, we can provide you with the best weapons and armor on Nortander. The only thing we need to ask of you is a small donation every time we craft something for you. I know, you saved our lives, but we still need to cover for the material.
No problem. I'll make sure to drop by from time to time.
Splendid. Nihal strength, Corporal.
Yes, come closer. I'm sure I have just what you need. You know how to bargain, don't you?
Huh?
Huh. Interesting.
Unbelievable. All this.
Must be quite a change of scenery.
Yes, you could say that. All my life I dreamed of stepping through the portal, and now I did. And it's beautiful. Everything is so vast. Oh well. It will take some getting used to, that's for certain. There's something else I wanted to discuss with you. I brought some things from the island that could come in handy on your travels. Weapons, trinkets, all sorts of things I found in the Hibernian ruins over the years. Most of them haven't been used for millennia, but for a little gold I could get them back into shape. Just let me know if you want to take a look.
I will. Thank you.
Shields. Everything from copper daggers to moon silver swords. Pleasure doing business with you. Come again. I'm getting new wares by the next...
I must say, I am impressed.
With Mullendeer? Yes. It's quite a sight. I still can't believe we're the first ones who found this place.
It seems unlikely, yes, but yet it happened. Isgrim, the dwarf, told me about it. He said that the rock illusion shielding the entrance vanished as soon as you spoke the words, and that it did not react to Isgrim himself.
Tell me, Tahar, what do you make of that?
Maybe I'm connected to this place.
But how? I know there is more to you than meets the eye. Something about you is different, although I cannot say what it is.
I believe we stand on the verge of a change. Things have happened, Tahar. Things, the extent of which we have not even come close to comprehending. And they have set something in motion.
How do you know this? Are you some kind of medium?
A medium? No, quite the opposite. I'm an observer. As you have undoubtedly noticed, I lack the, let us call it emotional intensity most people display in their daily lives. That can be a challenge, but it also allows me a unique perspective on the world.
And to me, it is evident that the war your father started has done more than simply given birth to the purity of light. It was the first pebble in what will soon become an avalanche.
You're talking about the Bloodburner?
Among other things, yes. But as I said, there is more to it. All this, your journey, your role in what Rondar Lacane believes to be a vision sent by Aenir. It is only the beginning. But let us continue this discussion when I can give you more than vague, semi-prophetic statements.
All right. We'll talk later.
Why? When?
When something comes up. I'll go prepare for our next mission now.
Understood. Yes, what is it?
Where did you grow up? You don't look Nortandian.
I do not, that is correct. I grew up in Imperia.
Imperia? That's a long way from here.
I know, but I hardly have any memories. My parents fled from the Civil War and set over to Northander when I was only 4 years old.
So you were refugees?
Yes, much like many Nortandians are now. We lived in the Utran lands, and my parents are still there.
What's it like to live in Northander as an Imperial?
Well, it was my impression that Utran people are by nature a lot more skeptical towards outsiders than, for example, the citizens of Everlight. All in all, however, I cannot complain. Both my father and my mother found work quite quickly, and thanks to my occupation as first scholar of the Creators Guild, they now live a quite comfortable life.
And when did you discover your magic?
At a very early age. I believe I was 7 at that time. I must have had an outbreak, but I can hardly remember any of it. All I know is that my mother's employer, who was a mage himself, immediately took me in. I went to Everlight when I was 10, and did not leave there ever since. Until now.
Interesting. You're the first Empyrean I've met.
I'm not surprised.
I've noticed that you use both white and black magic in combat. I've never seen anyone do that before. Don't the two schools exclude each other?
Normally, yes. The essence of white and of black magic deeply oppose each other. Trying to combine both of them usually has a similar effect on a mage's mind as adding water onto a patch of burning oil. I, however, never had that problem. The first time I found out was at the Arcane University in Greyfell, where I studied. The white magic spell I had cast on a rabbit to heal his wounded paw accidentally killed it. I was very young at that time, and I knew my professor would be upset if he found out, so I channeled my energy on undoing what I had done. As a result, I created an undead rabbit. It immediately went feral, and I put it back to sleep. But rather than feeling the terrible headache that had been described to us as an effect of combining these two schools, I felt a slight sense of, well, exhilaration. I secretly continued these experiments during my studies, and found out that whatever it is that causes this mental discord among normal mages did not affect me.
Do you have an explanation for this?
No, I do not. Maybe it has to do with the way my mind is structured, or maybe it is a simple coincidence.
Huh. Well, that's all. Back when we met, you told me about an internal disagreement, which led to many of the guild's mages leaving. What exactly happened?
Why do you want to know?
No particular reason. I'm simply curious.
I see. Well, simply put, the guild had 2 leaders until half a year ago, me and Lena. Lena and a lot of the other mages felt that they could uphold their neutrality no longer without sacrificing their integrity.
You're talking about the persecution of mages?
Yes, I am. As Lena said, they are crucifying us, burning us alive, putting masks on our heads that destroy our minds. If there's something wrong with the world, it's people who keep their heads down because they are afraid to stand in for what's right.
Well, she did have a point.
In her reasoning, she did, yes. However, her stance conflicted with everything the Creators Guild stands for. We preserve knowledge, push forward the boundaries of magic. We do not involve ourselves in power games and politics. Figuratively speaking, a fisher will never be a good military commander, just like a mage will never be a good politician.
So where did Lena and the other mages go?
I do not know. They left to fight the purity and save mages, but I have not seen them ever since.
Could you tell me more about Lena? What was her position in the guild?
She was the guild's treasure master. Other than that, I do not know what to tell you. She was quite young when she joined the guild, not even 24 winters old, and immensely talented. When it came to mentalism, her skills were unmatched. She was different than the others. She was better than the others. And I always saw a spark of genius in her eyes. And yes, I do know that most people would call that attraction. But it was just a fraction of what made our bond unique.
Well, I understand the conflict.
Well, you are an empathetic man, so I would have been surprised if you did not. But these events lie in the past. There is no point in discussing them any further, though I had certainly hoped for a different outcome.
You seem bitter.
As I said, I had hoped for a different outcome.
You got it. Sounds like a plan.
Tahar, finally! Do you have the stone?
I do. What now? How do we connect it to the Nexus?
Well, I've done a little research on that. It should be pretty straightforward. Give me the stone for a second, please.
Sure.
Thanks. Now, let's see. Whoa!
This is amazing. What the heck just happened? Was that the stone?
Yeah. It seems like our plan worked. The stones are the power sources of the Nexus.
Not sources, Tahar. They're simply the catalysts. As I said, the energy, all this magic, it comes from someplace else.
Well, I definitely know why the Shapers were so powerful now. If they were able to harness that, I wouldn't want to be their enemy.
Pain.
Pardon?
Rekindling this place. I can feel their thoughts now. At least, some of them.
You mean the Shaper's thoughts?
Those who connected themselves to this place. The ones who had the power of telepathy. They left an echo, and whatever wiped out the Shapers, it caused pain. Horrible pain.
I see.
Well, fascinating or not, we need to connect our minds to the Nexus to find the source of the bloodburn, right? Can we do that now?
No. It's not strong enough yet.
Well, we have the second stone already. Let's insert it. Okay, I'm ready. Sure this place isn't gonna blow up once we insert the second stone, Iskrim?
What? No, I don't think that's likely.
All right, here we go.
Blasted, blistering blazes. I don't know what to say. This is amazing.
But it seems like it worked. We've restored the Nexus to full power.
What comes next, Iskrim? Is it strong enough to perform the joining ritual now?
It should be. And you, Tahar, should be the one to do it. You need to connect your mind to the Nexus. That way, you might be able to sense who or whatever is sending out the song. What do you say? Are you ready?
Shouldn't we, I don't know, prepare?
How? Putting on a Shaper costume? Now's as good a time as any.
Fair point. All right, Iskrim. I'm ready.
Good. Then step into the forge.
And what now?
Tahar!
We...
Is it over?
Yes, I think so. By the Guardians, that was... I don't know what just happened.
Describe.
There were... voices, screams, thoughts, images.
How do you feel now? I mean, has anything changed?
I think so. Yes. I feel... I don't know. Clearer. As if something in my mind opened up.
Then it worked! Niehaus, Hammer, we did it! You joined yourself with the Nexus!
So... I am telepathic now?
You're not a Dreamweaver. I'd feel it if that were the case.
I don't think you are, but you're connected to this place now. And therefore to the Shaper memories.
Does that mean we can finally locate the cause of the song?
You tell me. Think of the song, Tahar. Close your eyes. What do you feel? What do you hear? What do you see?
try.
A failure. That's what you are.
No. That's impossible.
What is it?
My father. I heard his voice.
Your father? So you think he's behind this?
I also heard the voice of a woman. She whispered something.
A woman? Now this is, interesting. But I still don't understand. Do you really think your father is involved in the blood burn?
I don't think so. There's more to it, but yes, my father is involved in this somehow.
This is helpful, but it still does not tell us where to start searching. Think hard, Tahar. Is there anything else?
Yes, there were sounds. Drips, crickets, flies, but...
The eye. Your father's laboratory.
Tiara's breath, of course.
The eye? You mean the marshlands?
Yes. My father had a laboratory there, in the old abandoned manor of House Waite. Nobody was allowed to follow him there, not even Rohan or I.
Well, sounds like we have a lead. The Bloodborne and the Song of the White are somehow connected to your father in his laboratory.
So it seems. Yes.
Tahar, maybe...
What?
Never mind. It doesn't matter.
Rohan, tell me.
There's nothing to tell.
Well, if you say so. I'll send a messenger to inform Lacane as soon as possible. He'll want to be there. Let's get prepared.
Alright, why not?
Fine. Will do.
Blasted armor. Tahar, how do you feel? You sounded a bit lost before.
I guess I was. My father's voice, it brought back memories.
And not exactly good ones, I suppose. Well, I hope we can find some answers in the marshlands. Is there anything else you wish to talk about? If not, I best get prepared. Tahar, may I help you with something?
I'd still like to know more about how you ended up in Nortender.
Bugger and blast. And here I was hoping you'd forgotten. Alright, I'll tell you. But only under one condition.
Yes?
That I get to ask you a personal question too.
Then we have a deal. Go ahead, I'm listening.
Fair enough. I was born in the Windwall Mountains.
You don't say.
Sorry, still sorting out my thoughts. It's been a long time since I last told this story to anyone. Alright, one more time. As you can imagine, I was born in Windwall, a child of the rocks.
Come again?
A true dwarf, as some would say. Born in the buried city, not on the outside as the traders and farmers are. My family was quite privileged. Not nobility, but my mother and father led a big smeltery which supplied one of the finest smithies. Moon silver weaponry. Ever heard of it?
I think so. The commanders of the Royal Army used them.
Figures. Well, my childhood was a rather unremarkable one. I had 2 brothers and a sister, and even though I was the oldest child, I was always the most quiet one. I learned quickly how to wield an axe, and I still know how to do it, but I never took pleasure in it. The same goes for my parents' craft. For some reason, Nihalf had given me a talent for metallurgy, but not the desire to use it. Instead, my biggest love was always made with ink. Books.
But I assume your parents didn't approve of that.
Oh no, they didn't mind. I had 3 siblings who could do the job as well as I, so the future of our family was secured. On the contrary, they were quite accepting, which wasn't usual amongst dwarves, especially not those in Windwall.
Dwarves are traditionalists, aren't they?
Oh yeah, they are. They love their brawls, they love their ale, and they love their metal crafting. And they never miss a chance to tell the outside world just how much they do.
Well, to be honest, when I think of dwarven culture, that's exactly what comes to my mind.
See? And that's the problem. There's always diversity in every race. There are soft-hearted orcs, there are elves who don't give a damn about the white tree, and there are humans with... well, you get the point. What I'm trying to say is, many dwarves love living these traditions, but there are some, like me, who just don't fit in. This is one of the reasons why I appreciate you and this group so much, Tahar. Aenir's tools or not, we're all pariahs, in one way or another.
Are the surface dwarfs different?
Depends. There are some who are very open-minded. For example, the traders who get around a lot. On the other hand, there are some who are as ignorant as the Windwallers.
So, what happened? Why did you leave Windwall?
I'm getting there, Tahar. When I came of age, I found work in the Windwall Library. That time was also when I deepened my knowledge of the Shapers. I devoured all the books there were, and bought whatever writings the merchants brought in. They smiled at me, talked of me as the strange bird, but I didn't care. The more I read, the more spellbound I became, and the more I dreamed of journeying through Io to solve all those mysteries not yet uncovered.
Are there Shaper ruins in the Windwall Mountains?
Hardly. And those that are there are buried beneath miles and miles of rock. Impossible to access without a huge expedition.
Huh. And what kept you from doing just that?
Well, two things. First of all, my attachment to my family. Secondly, Gilak.
Gilak?
My, partner.
You had a partner?
Yeah. We met... I'd rather not go into detail too much. Fact is, we lived together for 6 years. He was very dear to me. Let's put it that way.
What are dwarven families like?
Similar to their human counterparts, I believe. Having family and offspring is considered to be very important, especially if you're of noble blood.
But living with someone of the same sex is acceptable?
Well, yes and no. If you do, you don't talk about it. And you should make sure to find yourself a wife or a husband to found a proper family, eventually, and bring new children of stone into the world, even if that family is just a charade. If you don't do that, you're frowned upon. There's even a word for a childless dwarf, man or woman. Galrag, which roughly translates as dusty boulder. Very amusing, I know.
That's sad.
Well, I doubt it's going to change anytime soon. And once again, the Shapers were different in that regard. As long as you stay within the boundaries of your caste, you could do as you pleased.
I understand. But something happened, didn't it?
Yeah. The Blackstone Rebellion. Ever heard of it?
No.
A coup. A small group of rebels tried to overthrow the royal house. It was bound to fail from the beginning. The rebels were anti-traditionalist and wanted to establish a new order, where it's the people who have the power, not the nobility. Gilak was one of these rebels.
Oh.
Yeah. At first, before the coup, they tried to raise awareness by giving underground speeches. A noble endeavor, but not at all thought through. Most dwarves just don't care about politics as long as they can have their mugs of ale. First, he didn't ask me to participate, but the more sour things went, the more he started pushing me. At one point, we had a fight. When he asked me to steal money from my family to support the movement, it was terrible. Finally, push came to shove, and he told me of the coup. He knew that despite my occupation, I was a remarkable fighter and Earthshaper, which is why he asked me to fight alongside him. You can make a difference, that's what he said. By Nihalf, he was just so naive. He really thought it would be like in the old legends, a group of courageous dwarfs fighting their way to Algrim Castle with me at his side. I just don't... Forgive me. It's strange to talk about it like this.
It's okay. Thank you for trusting me.
Yeah, sure. You can imagine how torn I was. I knew he'd die if the coup took place, but I also knew that I couldn't stop him. When I told him he was mad, he called me a coward, a delusional bookworm, who'd rather spend his whole life dreaming about the past and changing the present. And then he left. The next day, I found him beheaded by a royal guard. They didn't even make it to the castle stairs.
I'm sorry, Isgrim.
It's all right.
Why didn't you tell the guard about the movement's plans? They could have stopped him.
Yeah, they could have. Only to execute him and all his friends the next morrow. Tahar, believe me, I thought about this quite a lot. About what I could or should have done. And do you want to know the saddest part of it?
What?
I came to the conclusion that I did nothing wrong. He had his mind set. And nothing I could have said would have changed what had been about to happen. In the end, there's only so much you can do.
What happened then?
I ran. Not only because I'd rather have died than return to that empty house of ours, but also because they would have arrested me too. Our relationship wasn't a secret, and in their eyes, I was as eccentric as Gilak and his friends. And we all know how dangerous eccentrics are, don't we? I left my family a letter, telling them not to come after me, bought a horse, and rode as far as it would take me before collapsing. That was 9 years ago. I haven't returned ever since.
What about your family? Did you ever hear from them again?
Not directly. Every now and then, I return to a big city to find a dwarf who can tell me about Windwall. But the thought of returning, I don't know. I know it's cruel toward them, but I just don't think I could ever bear setting foot in those cursed stone halls again.
I see. And since then, you've been studying the Shapers?
Yeah. If there really is, as people say, a silver lining to everything, then this would be it. I'm finally doing what I was too afraid to do back in Windwall. I'm living my dream. Though the price I paid for it was high. And you know what, Tahar?
What?
There's a third reason to my fascination with the Shapers I haven't told you about yet. It's Gilak. Stupid as it may sound, there's a part of me who wants to prove him wrong. To show him that the past has value. That it can guide us towards a better world.
I see. Well, thank you for sharing this, Isgrim. I appreciate it.
Yeah. It felt good to talk about it. I didn't expect that. But you're not off the hook yet. The question, remember?
Right. Shoot.
Your past is even more unusual than mine. Growing up with a man like Isamu Tahar as your father? Without a mother? And then the whole thing with the Mage Rebellion? I know you've been through a lot. Now, I was wondering, if you could trade that past you've had for a different one, would you do it?
What kind of a past could I choose? Anything?
Anything.
Of course I would.
That's what I thought. Either way, pleasure speaking with you. Hope this wasn't too grim for you, but then again, you asked for it. Give me some time now, will you?
Sure. Take care, Isgrim.
Iana?
Oh. Yes. Forgive me, I was lost.
How so?
Well, this place. Since you've rekindled the Nexus, it is an ocean of thoughts, feelings, and memories. You felt it yourself as you joined your mind with the Nexus.
So you can hear the Shaper's thoughts now?
Fragments, yes. Just like when you had your vision.
How come the joining didn't make me more like you? I thought the Shapers who connected themselves with the Nexus were able to feel each other's feelings and hear each other's thoughts. Isn't that exactly what Dreamweavers do?
No. This telepathy the Nexus granted its users, it's different from my abilities. You can only hear the thoughts of the other ones who once joined themselves to the Nexus. And they are all long dead. In other words, you're listening to the whispers of 1,000 corpses. My mind, on the other hand, is like an open window. And people's thoughts and emotions are like leaves the wind has blown inside. It doesn't limit itself to a certain group of people, as Shaper telepathy did.
Well, what do you hear then? Do you know why the Shapers died?
I'm afraid I don't. Just imagine standing inside at Everlight's market at high noon. It's impossible to make out anything. Which is why I try to keep my mind closed for most of the time.
What do you make of this vision I had?
What should I make of it? I don't know, Tahar. Only you can answer that question. But I think your father's laboratory holds the answers you're looking for. And maybe an end to the bloodburn. Yes, Corporal? How can I help?
Well, there's something I've been meaning to ask you. How did you become an assassin?
Why do you want to know?
No particular reason, I suppose. I'm just curious.
I see. In short, my mother sold me. And after an incident, my owner noticed my talents. He started to train me to carry out jobs for him. And when I was 17, he had an accident. I've been an independent assassin ever since.
Your mother sold you? But where? Why?
Because she needed the coin, and already had 4 children to feed. And as for your first question, where there is demand, there is a market. Particularly in a big city like Greyfell. It's not as uncommon as you might believe.
That's quite the story.
Is it?
Even if she needed the money, that's despicable.
Well, to her credit, she didn't take it lightly. At least as far as I can remember. I was only 7 when that happened.
That doesn't make it better. You're saying there's a slave market in Greyfell?
Slaves, sex, murdering for pleasure. Just imagine every dark desire you can think of. And you know what the Greyfell Bazaar has to offer. I find it interesting that this surprises you. Didn't you serve in the Royal Army for 8 years?
I only joined shortly before the Mage Wars started, and the Greyfell affairs were the responsibility of the Greyfell Guard. I just didn't know.
Well, now you do. I do not agree with the purity of light in most aspects. But they are right when they say there are many sinners in this world. If you believe in the concept of sin, that is.
How do you feel about this? Your mother selling you off?
Well, I used to feel strongly about it. Now I've simply accepted it as part of my past. But there are plenty of reasons for that.
So, who is this man who bought you?
I won't talk about that. This chapter of my past is done, and I want it to stay buried.
I understand.
I'm glad you do. So, tell me, Pariah, how did you become the Betrayer's child in the first place? It's rare for a child to defy their own father.
That's simple. My father was a monster, and I had to stop him.
A monster? Interesting. What makes you call him that?
He was power-hungry. He said his war was about protecting the mages, but it wasn't. All he cared about was becoming more powerful.
Oh. I understand. Either way, is there anything else you need?
There's something I've been wondering. How can you kill for a living?
What do you mean? How can I align it with my morals?
Yes.
I don't know if this is the right moment for this conversation. Maybe another time.
That's the way? Huh. Intriguing.
There you are. I was hoping you'd come by. The Eye. And here I'd hoped I'd never see those bloody castle walls again.
I know that feeling. Tell me, Rowan, did my father never tell you anything about those experiments he did there? At all?
No. He didn't.
I see. Well, then I guess we'll find out.
Tahar, what is it?
There's one thing I've been wondering about. After we parted at the hideout, what exactly happened? How did you and my father part ways?
Good question. I guess it all started with the relics. The tomes. You remember them, right?
Yes. He was hoping they'd help him to win the war.
Exactly. And there was this one moment when he found the 5th tome. When I came to a realization. You see, there were all those bodies. Enemies, but also many of our people. We had shed so much blood, Tahar. But Asamo, he didn't care. If there was any grief in his eyes, I couldn't see it. And as dramatic as it may sound, that's when I finally understood that we had lost our cause. This wasn't about ideals, about us mages anymore. It was about him. Whatever his intentions had become.
And that's the reason Zane, Helena, and I betrayed him. Come on, do you really want to tell us you didn't see that before? The tomes were all about power.
I knew it was about power. But Asamo always told us that he would use that power for the greater good. And it's not that far off. I mean, can't you imagine? With the power of the tomes, we could have united the world. Even made it a better one. No more persecution of the deviant. No more wars. No more suffering.
Maybe. But my father certainly wasn't the one who should lead it.
Maybe not.
Sure. Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Back in Bar Gagor, you told me that you think the orc should strive to be more. What do you mean by that? Do you consider your culture to be, well, inferior?
Inferior? No, not at all. On the contrary, I'm glad to be a fire wielder, and not a human or an elf.
Why?
Because not so unlike the Shapers, your culture is bigoted, strange. You like to tell yourselves you're more than the animals you slaughter for food. You call yourselves civilized. But in the end, you look for the struggle just as anything and anyone else does. But of course you don't admit to it. You want to be better than that. And the result are lies, intrigue, wars, and assassinations. Their culture is so bizarre that it's almost amusing.
That might go for some, but not all of us.
Maybe, maybe not. So no, I don't consider our culture to be inferior. But we've gone astray. Fools such as Krell was one. They're the reason your race looks down on us. If Zakrak had wanted us to be ever-fighting, ravaging brutes, he wouldn't have given us minds to begin with. Every brawl, every battle, every war has to have a purpose. It isn't something done for pleasure. Yes, it can be enjoyed. But at its core, it is ritual. The most basic one of nature.
In other words, violence and war are good and necessary, but only within measure?
Yes, and it should be learned from. That's where most orcs disagree. They claim to value wisdom, but when asked to choose between words and a club, they always choose the club. And as you see, this is why our culture has stagnated. In its current state, there will never be an orc empire, a great tribe, or the earth-shaking horde Zarek envisioned.
So what you want is to lead your people to a better future?
You make it sound so dramatic. For now, the Fire Wielders are a good start. And by helping you, they will hopefully see that diplomacy and strength don't always contradict each other. After that, we shall see.
Don't you think a world without violence is possible?
No.
Why? Isn't that what we should all aspire to?
We should aspire to a lot of things. But tell me, Tahar, this world has existed for millennia. And has there ever been peace? Lasting peace?
At times, yes.
At times, exactly as I said. Our very existence is based on conflict. Finding food, not freezing to death. Living means to struggle. Your people, with your warm clothes and banquets, try all in your power to forget that fact. But you can't, because ultimately, there's as much thirst for struggle in you as in an orc. What we orcs believe is that we should embrace it. That we should just face the truth. Even if it's ugly. That the ways of nature can't be changed by its creation. It's like fighting the tides.
So what? Do we just kill each other whenever we feel like it?
No. What we need is a way to channel our urges. Ceremonial battles, arenas. A society that is centered around survival and strength, and gains, rather than loses stability from it. Because if we simply suppress these urges, such as humans, the elves, and the dwarves do, they will at one point only erupt even more violently.
I get your point, but I'm sure there must be another way.
There isn't. Anyway, where were we?
Did you always have these ambitions?
No.
Then where did they come from?
None of your business, Tahar. Sorry.
All right. Well, thanks for explaining.
Sure.
What's it like to change form? I've been wondering about that since I met you.
I can imagine. It's exhilarating and strange at the same time. If it taught me one thing, then it's how foolish it is to put the mind above every other aspect of the body. Many people do that, especially scholars or mages.
What do you mean?
Because the shape of our flesh is so much more than just a shell. It defines us. When I take on the form of a wolf, for example, this wolf isn't just me with fangs and paws. It's a different version of myself.
A different version?
Yes. You can't understand if you haven't been there. But I guess you could say that when I'm taking on a creature's form, a part of my mind gets infused with that creature's essence. The thirst for the hunt. Thinking as part of a pack, just to name the most obvious aspects. They meld with my mind. When I was young and first started shifting, the creature always dominated. It was like a feverish dream, and I had almost no control over my actions. With time, it got better.
Did you ever completely lose control when you were in another form?
In the beginning, yes. But the Elder always made sure I was in a controlled environment when I did my first transformations.
How do you learn a new form?
That's complicated. First you have to understand that creature, observe it, live with it if possible. That can take months, years, sometimes decades. Then there's what we shamans call the first joining. You have to visualize your shift.
How does that work?
I can't explain it. It's like your first bloodshed. It can't be explained, only experienced.
So in theory, could you transform into anything? Even, say, a wyvern, a dragon?
In theory, yes. In practice, there's no known shapeshifter who has ever done that. Save for old orcish legends, maybe.
Why not?
First off, there aren't many dragons around to study. And even if there were, you aren't likely to survive it. Secondly, transforming into something that enormous, it can be lethal. Our minds, our essence just isn't fit to govern such a massive body. Only some years ago, there was talk of an Ash Reaver shifter who had attempted to morph into a troll. He succeeded, but his heart, the troll's heart, stopped before he could take a single step. So you see why most shifters aren't that eager to experiment.
Huh, well, that's definitely interesting. Thanks for taking the time to explain.
Sure.
How did you become a shapeshifter?
I was chosen.
And how does that work?
Complicated. Are you sure you want to hear the whole story? Time isn't exactly on our side.
It isn't, but the more I know about your abilities, the better. You're fighting for me, after all.
We're not fighting for you, Tahar. We are fighting alongside each other. That's a big difference.
Alongside, then.
Good. Let's make it short, then. Shapeshifting is a gift of Zarg. One that only the best of his shamans are granted.
And how does one become a shaman?
He has to be chosen by a tribe's chieftain. You see, magical talent is a lot rarer among orcs than it is among humans or elves. In my tribe, there was only me and Rain. We both discovered our talent by chance. I, when I was 9, and put out a fire that had broken out in my family's hut. Everybody was asleep. Even the damn fool that had been tasked to stand guard. When I woke up, the entire room was in flames.
So it was your magic that woke you?
No. I needed to take a piss.
Makes sense. What happened then?
I panicked and started screaming, as every child would have. However, the only thing that did was make me inhale the fumes even quicker. My vision blurred and I lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I was on a bed of hay in the village shaman's tent, and everybody was staring at me, as if I was Zarek incarnate. I asked what happened and they told me. Just when I had lost consciousness, it had started to rain. Not just a little. It was a full-fledged storm, a deluge from the skies. With not even a minute, all the tents in the village had been flooded. The fire wasn't extinguished right away, but was quickly put out by the other orcs that had been awoken by the storm.
That's impressive.
Well, it was also my last successful weather ritual. If it hadn't been, Barker Gore would be all meadows and forests by now. According to my brothers, I had an orange shimmer in my eyes and was muttering strange words when they took me to the shaman. She told me that was a clear sign that I was gifted, and that I had fire in my blood, as my tribe likes to say. Of course, it changed my life entirely. All of a sudden, I was my Cal's pride. It was strange, not just for me, but also for my kin.
How did your family take it?
Well, they were proud. But they also weren't sure how to treat me anymore. For example, my father stopped taking me out on the hunt because he was afraid that something might happen. Which is ridiculous. Shaman or not, an orc who can't wield a spear isn't an orc at all. Also, my siblings became withdrawn. Jealousy, of course, but also estrangement. All of a sudden, their baby brother had become this strange being, which had apparently been bitten by Zarek himself.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Don't be dramatic. There's worse fates than being the one gifted orc among thousands.
Who trained you? The healer?
Yes, but only about her craft. Primitive ghost callings, alchemy, medicine. I learned my magic from an elder who lived in a tiny shack a 15-mile march from our village. I woke up every day before dawn, walked for 2 hours, served him, and received my lessons. Then returned to my cow shortly before midnight. It was hard, yes, but it was insightful. Those long walks in the darkness, the solitude at the foot of the mountain where his shack was, they shaped me.
Interesting. And who is this Rain you mentioned earlier?
Did I? Well, that's complicated. I don't want to talk about it.
All right.
At your command.
Yes?
Iskrim's plan worked. By joining your mind to the collective subconscious of the Shapers, you were able to locate the origin of the Song of the White. The marshlands, also known as the Eye, where your father had a secret laboratory. It seems that Rondar Lekane was right. One way or another, your family is connected to the Bloodburn. Time to unravel the mystery.
Tahar, there you are.
Bertrand?
That's my name. The Harbinger sent me to welcome you.
What about Iskander? I thought you'd still be there.
I was, until recently. But that's a long story. We can talk about it later if you want. First, we need to discuss the reason you're here. There's good news and there's bad news. Let me make this short. Sentenza, General Noria, caught wind of our endeavor. He knows we are headed for the Eye.
That's bad. What's the good news?
He wasn't sure of it, so he only came with a small division of soldiers. Still, the fortress is heavily guarded, so we will need more troops to storm it.
Damn it. We left our forces in Mullandir.
I know. There was no way you could have known this would turn into a full-fledged battle. But there's no time to turn back now, and we have to come up with a plan. The Harbinger himself will join you at the fortress, together with some Lightbringers.
Lightbringers? So the Purity has actual soldiers now?
They always had soldiers. The Bane.
What? No, the Bane doesn't belong to the Purity. They believe they do, but the Harbinger has clearly renounced any affiliation with them.
You really believe that? For the Harbinger's right hand, you definitely don't know a lot.
If that's what you want to believe, go ahead. Regarding your question, Tahar, a lot has happened since your escape from Greykeep. More and more people have started to see the light. And it is not just townsfolk and farmers anymore, but also soldiers. They all wish to fight for Aeonir's return, and we guide them.
Sounds like a religious militia. To be honest, I don't like this. Northander doesn't need more armed factions.
Oh, what is that army of yours if not a militia? This country is torn, Tahar. It's only natural for people to take up arms and defend their own rights. You of all people should know that.
And how will he do that? If Sentenza has scouts all over the marshlands, he'll see the Purity's army coming from miles away.
That's where you come in. There's a godstone on the mountain of the old castle where your father's laboratory was, and where Sentenza has made his stand. If you kindle it for us, the Harbinger can use his rune to teleport himself and his armies right there.
Huh. That could work.
It will. Aeonir is guiding us, Tahar. Don't ever forget that. I'll wait here to make sure Sentenza's reinforcements don't take us by surprise if they get here before all this is done with.
I still don't understand how Sentenza got wind of this.
I don't know. He is the spy master after all, so I guess it's just one of his many ears who told him.
Can you tell me anything about the marsh?
Well, I take it you're not interested in the folk tales about House Waite's descent into madness, so... No, not really. The only thing you should watch out for are undead. There's quite a lot of them around.
Of course. The Bloodburn.
What do you mean?
The Bloodburn. I don't know how to explain it, but corpses can be affected too. It awakes them.
Oh, that's eerie. Well, but I guess it explains a lot. The swamp has taken hundreds of lives over the years, and if that castle is where the Bloodburn originates from, then, well, you understand.
Bertrand, there's something I'd like to know. What do you make of all this? Do you really think my father is responsible for the Bloodburn?
Well, must be connected to it somehow. Aeonir himself told the Harbinger this, didn't he? As to why and how, I guess we'll find out.
Once we've secured the Godstone, what then?
The Harbinger will know, but I assume we will storm the place. Once we're on the island, it should be an easy fight.
Shouldn't we try to reason with Sentenza first?
No, I don't think that's wise. Sentenza hates you, and he hates the purity too. He has been trying to hunt you down since you escaped the keep. We cannot take that risk.
All right. I'll see what I can do.
You will. Aenir's blessings, Tahar. And stay safe. I'll be here if you need me.